Hi, everyone. Welcome to the webinar, Building Cross-Company Consensus for Change, Best Practices for Scaling Up a More Mature Quality Risk Culture by our colleague from Canada, James McDermott. My name is Valentina Conejero. I am part of the PeakAvenue marketing team in Germany, and we're pleased to welcome you today at one of our webinars within the Quality and Engineering Circle. Before James starts with the presentation, I would like to give you some organizational information. You are welcome to ask questions via the chat function. I will collect and ask them to our speaker at the end in the Q&A session. You can find the chat in your webinar dashboard. Also, this webinar will be recorded and made available to you over the next week. I think now we're ready. James, you can start with your presentation.
Thank you, Valentina, for the lovely introduction, and thank you, everybody, for joining me today. My name is James McDermott, and some of you may know me. I'm the general manager of our Americas business, and I'm really pleased to be here. A couple of thank yous are in order. First of all, for all of you that are joining, digital events are almost becoming a thing of the past again, which is ironic given that they became almost the only way to connect for a few years. But I know we've had fantastic numbers of both customers and some other industry participants. Secondly, I'd like to thank our marketing team for putting on this event. Every year we do some version of this, and it seems like every year it gets better and better. We have a really world-class marketing team, and I really appreciate you guys taking the time to do this for our customers. So as I said, my name's James, and today I want to talk to you a little bit about the process that really good companies take to mature their quality risk management behavior or discipline, if you will. Now, a lot of the presentations that you're taking in over the course of the Quality Engineering Circle are fairly technical. We have some great ones from customers that are story-based, some that are likely to provide some tips and tricks for current users, and others that are going to give information about how our software all fits together for those of you that might be looking at purchasing a platform like the products that PeakAvenue provides. So today is actually almost like an anti-software presentation. And I wanted to start with this slide of what is essentially a black hole. I have been on the other side of the coin in adopting new software. And unless as a buyer or an implementer of new software, you go about it very carefully with a measured approach, it can end up inside of this black hole. Now, whether it gets spit back out is another question, but certainly when you take the time and money and resources required to even get started with an application, having it fall into the dreaded black hole is not where you want to be. So really, I'm not here to talk about our product. I'm not here to tell you about how it works or how it all fits together, because quite frankly, there is a myriad of other presentations this week that cover that. I want to discuss how our best customers actually start with us and how they go about implementing our software in a successful manner. I want to talk about maturity, and I'm going to use that word a lot in this presentation because quality risk, or the digital thread behind your quality efforts, is really a sliding scale of maturity. Some engage with us at the very beginning, and this is a sort of a size agnostic presentation. I don't want you to think about maturity as a product of how big your company is or how big your team is. Quite literally, we have some of the largest companies in the world start with us at a very immature level when it comes to managing quality risk, and some small suppliers that are quite far ahead. So I want you to think about where you sit in terms of your own maturity while I present. So for those of you that might be new to our company, the majority of prospective buyers come to us in this format. First of all, they ask about the features that our products provide. They want to know whether the pricing scheme that we have fits into their budget. And in some more mature cases, they may have conducted some internal surveys or burn down charts to figure out what it is that their users want, some comparative analysis and Pareto diagrams, maybe some case examples from past business, past implementations that people on the team may have been part of. And occasionally they may share with us right off the bat the approval cycle. So on the whole, what this is a very tactical, systematic way of quote unquote buying software. And this is what we almost always see to start. And the reason is adopting new software is really hard. And there are three things that I think everybody wants to know to start this process with PeakAvenue, or any software vendor for that matter, is your software easy to use and is it quick to learn? Because no one wants to buy something that's impossible to implement. Does it fit within the quote unquote budget? And do I have user buy-in and executive support to onboard this application? And these are all great questions. And everything in this slide here, these are all super necessary. But the problem is that it really doesn't actually answer the question. The question being, what is it that we're actually trying to solve? Now, this may seem crazy because obviously in the process of engaging with our customers, we're going to talk to them about what it is that their goals are. What are the problems that they're experiencing? We spend hours and hours going over these things, but often it is the case that these things, the tactical system level questions, far outweigh what I would call the 4 phases of success, or the roadmap to success for any business that is looking to build a mature quality risk management discipline. So for the rest of this presentation, I'm going to go through 4 steps that I think everybody can benefit from. Not just if you are new to what we do here and perhaps looking for a solution, but also for our current customers that are maybe looking to rejuvenate how the PeakAvenue product that you are using is viewed in your organization, and maybe start thinking about how you might want to quote unquote pick up the pace or look at that next level of maturity. So step 1 is problem identification. Now, for net new prospects that come to us, and this might be of no surprise to those of you who are already in our product, is there's really 4 key areas that drive engagement. Number 1, overwhelmingly, is compliance. So either an OEM generated compliance piece, something like the Ford CSR that we've seen come up, or an audit that's approaching, or a failed audit. Compliance drives behavior. So we see a lot of mature businesses come to us and say, we're out of compliance, can you help us? Secondly, and I think this goes a little further up the maturity scale, is connectivity. It's that businesses that may have the basics covered really see no logical connection between their quality risk efforts. And they certainly don't have a linear digital thread that covers all of the elements of their quality efforts. So this might be something as simple as connecting design and manufacturing all the way to market feedback. This connectivity piece is something that is not necessarily easy to achieve right off the bat, but it is something that we see the market asking for more and more. Thirdly, more of a tactical problem is that there may be too many tools in play. Application justification is a big thing in every IT and analyst's notebook of things to get done in 23, 24. You may have a lot of different technical or technology applications in your IT stack that really aren't working together. And often is the case is that we will have an engineering department come to us and say, can you help us consolidate? Then lastly, and this is the one that we see picking up even more quickly, is executive push. A new engineering leader, for example, or a new C-level executive may come into your business, whether you're small, mid-sized, or large, and will say, we want to improve our quality discipline. And to use a market example that virtually everybody knows that's in the automotive business is Ford. For the last several years has sort of admonished itself over some bad statistics in terms of recalls, very, I would call it poor PR around it. Their CEO has hired a number of industry heavyweights to go and talk about how they are going to make improvements in this area. Certainly, even if you're in a tiny business, this is something that we see happening. People are making a bigger commitment to pushing for a more mature quality risk discipline. So in this first phase, regardless of what challenges you to come to a vendor like PeakAvenue, There are 3 things that I think every good business does to start their journey with us. And even if you are halfway along your journey with PeakAvenue, Plato, or IKS, or even more mature, you may want to consider these things. So number 1 question comes up, it's how do I measure the return on the investment I'm going to make in your application or the services that you're going to provide to us? And what we have been doing recently is turning that question back around and saying, well, what does maturity look like to you? Are you really looking to save time, reduce the cost of quality, drive down post-market failures? I mean, these are all things that are obvious, but it's very important for us to build a mutual understanding of what success looks like for our partners, as well as what success will look like in terms of the investment that you're making in our application. And more times than not, this conversation really helps, because what it does, it starts to build a story internally that you can share. And you'll find that throughout this presentation, I will refer to marketing, internal marketing. Switching to a new tool or investing in a new heavyweight tool, no matter the size of your business, is frustrating for most users. Most people do not jump up and down when they have to learn that there is a new software application in town. But when you have a very clear path to a return on investment and have a cool, clear story as to why you are investing, how it's going to go, how you're going to measure it, more people buy in. And we've seen this with some of our best customers that have shared this ideology with us and implemented it. And I have a lot of respect for those that have done it, because it's not easy, but it takes you a lot further along the chain without getting some of the resistance that can come with large user communities. Secondly, is do you have a core team? It's really difficult for a single person or a couple of people in disparate locations to push the maturity level needed to really go hard when it comes to quality risk management. So who is going to push this message? Who's on the team? And who's going to defend the time investment and the resourcing that you need to push? If you don't have an aligned core team of professionals that can defend your message, that can talk about why you're doing what you're doing, it becomes very frustrating. And again, this is an area that we've seen really good companies strive in, developing a tight, dedicated core. And then number 3, knowledge transfer. So have you identified the groups who will start the journey and evangelize the change? When it comes to rolling out software, particularly we've seen in our business is that you have multiple locations, multiple countries, different personalities. Having a very clear order of operations, who's going to start and where, and how those people are going to tell that success story is absolutely key. So after step 1, you get to step 2, which is a single process. When you look at the application justification map that I showed you at the beginning, which is very tactical, we find that some businesses struggle because they don't have an actual process to stand behind the technology that has been agreed upon. So the first step we recommend is for a company to review what is currently being done and to, again, create a story as to why you are changing or why you are eliminating silos of process to go with one single thing. Now, what ends up happening more often than not is there's resistance. One group does it this way, another location prefers to use this process. What we find is very successful is once you decide on a single process, and I've listed some examples, it could be something as an FMEA procedure guide, for example, is that building and publishing that new process guide is key. Sharing it with all parties involved and making it known this is the way things are going to be done from now on. Again, to go back to my previous slide about desired ROI, the core, and knowledge, without these things, publishing a process guide, it ends up collecting dust. If you're going to make these efforts to standardize a process, to share why you are standardizing it, and to make it available to everybody, those sort of power centers that I dictated before are very important. Then lastly, internal marketing. Do a good job of telling the story and continually drive clarity. Highlighting the people is also really key. So when you have a new application in town, or maybe when you're driving it to new locations inside of your business, make sure you're very clear in telling users who their internal experts are. Who can they go to, for example, get internal training or to drive knowledge transfer? Make those people known. And also, when you have different parts of the business working on different projects, being able to connect them. We have customers that will do, for example, a monthly cross-functional meeting between leaders in all groups that are using the application. And this isn't just large companies. This is small companies too that may only have 3 or 4 plants. Being able to connect those people to talk about what's working, what's not, to make sure everything's being documented, I think shows respect for the people that are putting their time and energy on the line, but also the time and energy that you put into this effort pays back. And again, if you have very discrete ROIs built into justifying your investment and time investment in a PeakAvenue product, we highly recommend taking the time to do something like this. Step 3, a measured approach. So excellence and quality risk isn't easy, or else maybe we wouldn't be around. But focus on developing a multi-phase process and create milestones based on deliverables that are part of a larger plan. Now, this is a fictitious example on the right side, but for example, you may have an organization that starts by trying to master their failure modes and effects analysis process, right? So within Plato Ines, for example, which is a PeakAvenue product, there are a lot of organizations that utilize the platform to build a world-class FMEA process. And it may take a year or 2 years to build that out and to fully realize the power of what Ines can provide for their organization. Step 2, they may have some integrations that they want to build into the product. We regularly help bring in data from other sources. It could be as simple as connecting it with something like Jira. And then step 3, maybe then you start thinking about this cross-quality digital thread that you might have heard other presenters talk about, which is really moving to a full QMS system. Now, again, this is a fictitious single example. What we do see on the flip side is really successful businesses breaking down a multi-year phased-in approach. And instead of trying to do too much all at once, we can assist you with helping you to look at what best practices look like in this area. We can look at what you have on your dinner plate, so to speak, and make some recommendations. My personal recommendation, though, is to not be overwhelmed by trying to boil the ocean all at once, and to look at where you are at in earnest and to develop I would call a practical plan to get to what you would call your desired maturity level. So again, another way of looking at this is a maturity curve. And if you think about where we started, and it is perfectly fine to be here, which is at the very bottom of this maturity curve, is we need to comply. We have great conversations with amazing businesses all the time that are taking this step. And at the very top, you might have deploying a connected quality engineering and manufacturing digital thread, including your supplier network. What is key here is that we can help you map this out. And it really doesn't take that much time. But when you start, or when you get disjointed between where you actually are in the process and where you want to be, is when problems start. And again, some of the companies that we work with that do this best are very clear on where they are and where they want to be, and put together a very feasible map to move themselves up this maturity curve. Lastly, I'd like to say this. Many of the companies we work with downplay their own capabilities in this area. We are too small, we don't have enough resources, we don't have the budget to be mature. This is a falsehood, and really it is about the organization taking the step to make good decisions. This is not about money and time. This is about being smart and how you approach the problem. So if you're sitting there and you're thinking, I will never be able to take my company up to this maturity level, this level of the maturity curve, we are always going to be perpetually sort of smaller and just getting the basics done really isn't the case. As I said many times in this presentation, some of our smallest customers have developed the most mature quality risk management disciplines in the market. So finally, as you can see here, we've identified the problem. We've created a single process, and we've highlighted the people and resources necessary to carry that process forward and evangelize it. In step 3, we've got a practical and measured approach to going from whatever maturity level you start at to your desired maturity level. And then step 4, train, teach, and evangelize. So we have a great services team here. And most of the work that we do is met with incredibly brilliant practitioners in the market. So the companies that we work with to succeed do some of these things. First of all, they offer open training sessions, whether we procure those training sessions or there's something that you do internally, doesn't matter. Strategy sessions, being able to talk about where the business is at relative to where it started, with reference to things like return on investment and actually tackling problems that the business had identified at the get-go. So yes, it's important to show people how to use the application, how to solve problems, how to put in tickets, all this kind of stuff. But if you don't continually talk about what progress you are making and evangelizing that story, you will lose interest. Investing in talent is really important too along the way, and continuing to build budget for things like facilitators or regional AQEs or other experts in that area. And again, what we find is that the companies that have taken the time to really think about a measured approach also include resourcing down the as part of their trajectory. It's not always possible to be able to get that next amazing talent, but if you build that as part of your ROI map, it is possible. And trust me, it helps. Then lastly, ROI talks. A lot of the times this happens with executives who will push back. You spent X amount of money on this application and these resources. What have you achieved? We help a lot of our customers sort of map what it is that they're doing and how it actually relates to their ROI target. So basically a running KPI as to how they're going to report out on what has worked and what hasn't. And back to that strategy session point in the top right-hand corner, these are the things that you can share. So it shouldn't be sort of a last-minute exercise. Hey, boss man wants to know, how we're tracking against A, B, and C. Again, in partnership with our customers, this is something that we, have done routinely, and it helps. So kind of flew through that, but I hope that left you guys with some food for thought. Certainly this is not relevant to everybody, but even if you are a current customer, I want you to take a pause and think about what maturity level is desired and by when, and are we doing everything that we can to evangelize the efforts, the time and energy that you're putting in to make this application work. And lastly, if you're new, if you're thinking about investing in a tool like INS, IQS, PeakAvenue products, if you start with some of these basic tactical milestones, you will do better. And you will end up in a spot where you can control the pace at which you mature.